Have you ever noticed that the harder you try, the less money seems to flow? It's as if the universe is playing a trick on you. But what if I told you the problem isn't in what you do, but in what you think? I call this the wealth pump because once you truly understand what lies behind money, it explodes into your life in a way that never stops. At age 40, many believe the game is already over. But it's precisely here, when life seems to stabilize or fall apart, that the hidden power of "you were born rich" reveals itself. And it's at that point that everything changes. When I say everything is energy, I'm not just reciting a pretty phrase. I'm describing the mechanism that governs every outcome in your life. I experienced this firsthand. I was a man who accepted limits because I believed in them. I worked in jobs that diminished me, accepted a self-image smaller than I could be, and lived thinking that money was a rare thing that came to some and not to others. Until the day someone put a book in my hands that turned the key, and I realized for the first time that this power literally flows to and through us. What I call the illusion of scarcity begins with what you accept as truth without questioning it. How many times have you heard, "I wasn't born for this. That's not for people in my family. I'm past my prime"? These phrases enter as suggestions, and if you let them, they are delivered to your subconscious as truths. The problem isn't the world. The problem is the inner voice that repeats the world's justifications. I know this because I lived that way. I accepted someone else's script, repeated habits, and because of that, my results seem to be written by someone else. Hearing this is one thing, feeling it is another. When you change the frequency of your thoughts, reality begins to respond. It's not magic, it's physics applied to thought. Think of the inventions we take for granted today. Someone conceived them as an image in their mind, insisted on that image until it became tangible. The same happens with your financial situation. The difference between those who receive and those who don't isn't luck. It's awareness and direction of the energy flow you allow to enter and exit your mind. Now, let me confront your fears, because the illusion of scarcity feeds three monsters that live in people's heads after the age of 40. I don't have enough time, I don't deserve it, and the economy is against me. I ask you frankly, which of these three voices do you repeat most often? If your answer is an automatic reaction, that's where the prison lies. The raw truth is, the economy changes, but people who think and act in a pattern of scarcity continue to have the same results, regardless of the economic cycle. What changes your trajectory is the direction you give to your thought, not the storm blowing outside. I'll be practical. Stop believing that being without money is the same as being incapable. Identify the belief that limits you, write it down, and ask yourself, where did I learn this? Very often the answer is, from someone else when I was little, or from the repetition of a negative environment. That's conditioning, and conditioning can be rewritten. I myself discarded much conditioning that paralyzed me. Childhood lessons, the everyone does it this way mentality, even the absurd idea that honesty and hard work by themselves would guarantee wealth. Working hard was necessary but not sufficient. What was missing was the ability to use creative and directed thought, to sow with intention. And here enters a point that confuses many people. Emotional security and income are not the same thing, but they are deeply connected. Scientific research shows that the relationship between money and well-being is real, not a myth. Classic studies indicated that up to a certain level, more income reduces suffering and improves well-being. A widely cited reference suggested a tipping point of around $75,000 per year for certain types of well-being. More recently, broader analyses have shown that the correlation between income and happiness exists, albeit moderately, and that the details depend on how we measure well-being. And research using momentary experience measures indicates that increased income can continue to improve well-being above that threshold, which reminds us money isn't the villain. It's a means that, when well-directed, reduces suffering and expands possibilities. Why do I mention this? Because the practical lesson is twofold. First, address your beliefs. Second, use money as a tool. Many people misinterpret studies and conclude that money doesn't matter. Wrong. Money buys options, reduces daily pressures, and creates the necessary space for your creative thought to flourish. But that alone isn't enough. If your mind remains trapped in scarcity, those options will be sabotaged by fear and self-sabotage. Let's look at a concrete and simple example, applicable today. If you feel that there's no way to improve your income, take a 7-day inventory of your emotional inputs and outputs. Write down each limiting thought when it arises. Label it fear, guilt, habitual. Then, write the opposing idea, the truth you want to implant. Repeating this truth aloud, feeling it in your chest for 5 minutes, and acting towards it creates a new vibration. It's not theory, it's intentional conditioning. The same principle that transformed my life when I traded fear for the idea that I could create a business even without formal education. I used to clean. I started without knowing how, just believing it was possible. And in the first year, I profited more than I ever would have imagined. The difference was the image I held in my mind and the conviction to act. I want you to feel two emotions right now. The honest pain of recognizing where you've been stuck and the palpable hope that a way out exists and is simple, even if it requires courage. This alternation, admitting the pain and activating hope, produces movement. And movement is what transforms energy into form. Now, a practical step-by-step that anyone can apply today: no excuses. Identify the limiting belief that appears most often. Write it in one sentence. Find its probable origin, person, event, habit. Replace it with an opposite and concrete sentence, e.g., I deserve to create consistent income with my skills. Visualize for 5 minutes, upon waking and before sleeping, this new reality as if it were already real. Take one simple, verifiable action each day. Call a client, offer a service, adjust a price, study for 30 minutes. Record results and sensations for 21 days. This is the time it takes for ideas to begin to solidify into habit. For those who fear that it's too late after the age of 40, I ask, isn't the experience you've accumulated an asset? Your knowledge, your network, the pain you felt, all of this is raw material to create something new. The difference between those who prosper and those who complain is that the former resolve to align thought and action, sowing new ideas, cultivating persistence, and allowing the energetic flow to lead them to new opportunities. And a practical, short and direct challenge: for 21 days, every morning write a sentence that contradicts your biggest scarcity belief. Visualize for 5 minutes and execute one action that contradicts that belief, however small. Do this without excuses. Observe the small changes. People begin to look at you differently. Doors open, the universe's or the market's attention begins to align with the new pattern you've established. Remember, the illusion of scarcity is not a sentence, it's an inheritance of thoughts we've accepted. When you decide you will no longer accept these stories, the invisible flow that has always been around you begins to work in your favor. Breathe deeply, choose a new idea, and let it flow through you. The rest is practice, perseverance, and the courage to believe that you were born with more than you think you have. For a good part of my life, I lived trapped inside a prison that had no walls, no bars, no guards. It was an invisible prison, built by the way I thought. I believed that freedom was something gained externally, through physical effort, hard work, luck, connections. But what I didn't understand was that everything I saw in the external world was merely a faithful reflection of what I carried within me. My mind was conditioned to believe in limitation, and because of that, all opportunities seemed to slip through my fingers like sand. I would wake up and repeat the same habits, the same thoughts, the same complaints, and like most people, I confused activity with progress. Working myself to exhaustion made me feel productive, but in reality, I was just repeating the same emotional cycle of fear, scarcity, and doubt. When you live this way, the mind transforms into a prisoner of habit. You convince yourself you're in control, when in fact, it's old beliefs that control you. At age 40, this becomes even stronger. A person looks at life and thinks, now it's too late. I've already made my choices. I've already made my mistakes. There's not much left to change. And that's when the invisible prison becomes most dangerous. Not because it's real, but because it feels comfortable. It's the place where the mind settles and says, leave things as they are. And I tell you, that's the beginning of stagnation, the exact point where the soul begins to fall asleep. What I realized, and what I completely changed, was the simple act of thinking. Most people don't think, they merely react. When a problem appears, they don't observe it, they just defend themselves. When an opportunity arises, they don't analyze it, they just reject it. And it is this lack of conscious thought that creates the feeling of imprisonment. I remember a phrase I repeated countless times in my seminars: most people live their entire lives without thinking twice. They believe that thinking is the same as remembering or imagining, but thinking is an act of creation. It's when you choose to use the mind's power to shape reality, rather than merely interpreting what already exists. I discovered that within each of us exist two worlds, the conscious world and the subconscious world. The conscious mind is like the ship's captain. It plots the course, determines the destination. The subconscious is the crew. It simply obeys. And if the captain issues muddled orders, the ship goes astray. This is what happened to me for years. My conscious mind would say, I want to prosper. But my subconscious would echo, I'm not good enough. And the subconscious always prevails, because it's the one that dictates automatic actions, feelings, reflexes, and outcomes. The invisible prison begins precisely there, when you desire one thing, but resonate with another. When your mouth says, I can, but your heart feels, I can't. When your body operates on autopilot, replaying old responses, without realizing that the power to change lies in the present moment. And do you know the first step to breaking free from this prison? Becoming conscious. Observing your own thoughts without judgment. Understanding that every negative emotion is merely a reflection of something you believed without question. I recall a simple yet profoundly revealing moment. I was driving, lost in thought about everything I hadn't yet achieved, when I suddenly realized how noisy my mind was. It was like a radio that never turned off, broadcasting bad news, worries, and criticisms. I pulled over, closed my eyes, and asked myself, who is speaking inside there? The answer was startling. It was the echo of all the voices that had once doubted me. Teachers, bosses, family members, society, and most importantly, myself. The prison was within my own voice. I then began to replace those old voices with new affirmations, not mechanically, but by truly feeling them. I saw myself free, I saw abundance, I saw fluidity. And the more I nourished that image, the more the external world responded. It was as if life itself was saying, now you're speaking my language. That is true liberation. When you realize the world outside you doesn't need to change for your reality to shift. It is your perception that transforms everything. And it's interesting because when I started to grasp this, I saw how much people live conditioned by fear. They avoid thinking big because they can't bear the thought of failure. But fear is merely a reflection of what the subconscious has learned to protect. It doesn't want to punish you. It wants to keep you safe. Yet safety is a gilded cage. It protects you from everything, including expansion. When I began teaching about this, I noticed how this message particularly resonated with those over 40. Because this is the stage where the body starts to slow down, but the soul hungers for purpose. It's the point where you realize you don't just want to survive, you want to feel that life has meaning, and for that, you need to break the cycle of automatic thoughts. You need to dare to think anew, to think like a child when everything seemed possible. There's an indescribable power in stopping, taking a deep breath and asking, why do I believe what I believe? It's a simple exercise, yet it dismantles old conditioning. Each time you question a belief, it loses its grip. And each time you affirm a new truth, it takes root. This is how you reprogram your mind, not by force, but by conscious choice. A practical example, imagine you want to change careers, start a business, or do something completely new. Your first thought might be, it's too late. This is the subconscious repeating the old pattern. What to do? Don't fight the thought. Replace it. Tell yourself, the experience I have is my greatest asset, and start acting from this new truth, even if it seems small. The brain needs repetition and emotion to accept a new idea. If you do this with consistency, the subconscious mind will begin to believe, and when it believes, the body follows. This is the difference between living and merely existing. To exist is to react to what happens. To live is to create what happens. The mind is the starting point of all creation, and when you grasp this, there's no prison capable of holding you back. You realize that the power has always been in your hands, and that the universe in silence was just waiting for you to remember it. The invisible prison was never the world outside. It was always the forgetting of your own ability to think and choose consciously. And when you awaken to this, you realize that the key to freedom has always been in the same place, within your own mind. For years, people asked me what the secret to changing one's life was. And I always answered with the same simplicity: change one habit, that's all, one habit. People expect complex answers, detailed plans, elaborate strategies. But the truth is that transformation begins with the simplest, and simplicity is what few manage to sustain. Everything you are today is a direct result of the habits you've chosen, consciously or unconsciously. Think about it. You almost always wake up on the same side of the bed, drink coffee in the same way, talk to the same people, react to problems in the same manner. This isn't coincidence, it's conditioning. They are mental patterns that repeat until they become automatic. And that's precisely where the power lies. If a habit brought you this far, another habit can take you anywhere. I remember observing brilliant people fail, not for lack of talent, but for lack of consistency. They had moments of clarity, of excitement, but reverted to the old pattern as soon as the enthusiasm faded. And this happens because the old habit is stronger than momentary will. It resides in the subconscious, and the subconscious doesn't argue. It merely obeys. So if you truly want to change your reality, you need to teach your mind to obey a new command. That's what my Aunt Marge did. She lived for decades saying yes to everyone. She did what others wanted, molded herself to please, and in the end, felt empty. One day she realized that this docility masked fear, fear of rejection, fear of being alone. And so she decided to change just one habit. She started saying no when she truly didn't want something. It seemed small, but that decision transformed her life. She opened a business, prospered, and for the very first time felt truly in charge of herself. That no liberated more energy than years of submission. And this is what I want you to understand. Changing one habit is changing a frequency. Every thought, every emotion vibrates at a specific pattern. If you keep repeating actions that keep you in scarcity, it's because you're vibrating at that frequency. When you consciously decide to act differently, even in small ways, you alter your vibration, and the universe begins to respond in a different manner. There's no coincidence in this. It is law. Think about something simple in your day. The way you react to an unexpected bill, how you talk about money, how you behave when you see someone successful. These reactions are windows into your conditioning. And if you want to know why your financial or emotional life is as it is, observe what you do without thinking. True change doesn't begin when you earn more, but when you behave as someone who already deserves more. Scientists call this neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to create new connections when a pattern is repeated with intention and emotion. When you decide to change a habit, you are reprogramming your neural structure. The body begins to respond differently, the mind adapts, and the subconscious, after resisting, surrenders. That's why I always say, give the new idea enough time to become a part of you. The mind takes on average 21 days to accept a new pattern. If you can endure through this period with discipline, the new habit becomes automatic. But the most common mistake is wanting to change everything at once. This creates tension, resistance, fatigue, and soon you give up. The strategy is simple. Choose one specific point. It could be waking up earlier, focusing on your diet, saving money, investing, or simply stopping complaints. What matters isn't the size of the habit, but your commitment to it. When you prove to yourself that you're capable of changing one thing, the brain understands it can change anything. This is the spark of true self-confidence, the kind that doesn't come from outside, but is born from repeated action. I remember a man I met at one of my seminars. He was broke, deeply in debt, and his self-esteem was shattered. When I asked what he did every day, he replied, "I wake up, turn on the news, and spend the rest of the day worrying." I told him, "Then start there. Turn off the television." He laughed, thinking it too simple, but he accepted the challenge. For 30 days, instead of listening to negative news, he read something inspiring and wrote down 3 things he was grateful for. 30 days later, his energy was entirely different. He had new ideas, attracted different people, and began to prosper. The money didn't come by magic. It came because the man changed the vibration he was emitting. Most people don't realize that small adjustments yield significant results. They wait for the perfect moment, the ideal plan, the right motivation. But nothing changes until you alter a recurring behavior. When you alter a routine, you force your brain to awaken, and life begins to respond with new possibilities. And there's something important. The new habit must be accompanied by feeling. Repeating words without emotion is like planting seeds in dry soil. You need to feel the new pattern. You need to visualize the outcome and believe that it is already in progress. Feeling is what connects the conscious mind with the subconscious. It is what imprints the change. If you feel stuck, if the years are passing and nothing changes, do this. Pick one habit and change it today. If you always start something and then give up, commit to it for 21 days, no matter what. Make it a pact with your own soul. You'll be amazed at what happens when you prove to yourself you can keep a promise. And if you doubt it will work, look around. Everything that exists, from the greatest fortunes to the most significant achievements, originated from a pattern repeated until it became second nature. The difference between those who succeed and those who fail lies in consistency, not talent. Success is the accumulation of daily micro-decisions made with purpose until the new way of being becomes automatic. Therefore, if you want to change your life, don't wait for a grand miracle. Create a small miracle every day in the form of a new habit. This is how you rewrite your own story, not with massive leaps but with steady steps, upheld by the decision to never return to what limited you. One habit, just one, can be the dividing line between the life you have and the life you've always wished to live. Thought is the most powerful force in the universe, but it can also be the greatest enemy of those who don't know how to wield it. When I began to grasp this, I realized that most people don't fail due to a lack of opportunities, but by thinking incorrectly, by harboring ideas that keep them trapped in low frequencies while desiring elevated results. It's like trying to tune into a prosperity radio station while stuck on the frequency of scarcity. You can turn the dial all you want, but as long as you remain on the wrong band, you'll only hear static. I remember that when I started my cleaning business, I had nothing but an idea, and if I had let fear decide, that idea would have died before it was even born. I had no money, no education, no experience, but I had a clear image in my mind. I saw myself prospering, I saw myself free, and most importantly, I felt what that freedom would be like. That feeling became my fuel. It's what kept me going when everyone said I was crazy, because the truth is simple. The universe doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to what you feel to be true. There's a scientific pattern that proves this. Studies in positive psychology show that the human brain tends to focus 5 times more on negative thoughts than on positive ones. This is an inherited survival mechanism, but if left unchecked, it becomes an internal saboteur. That's why mental reprogramming requires repetition and intention. You are fighting against years, sometimes decades, of conditioning, and the only way to win is through conscious persistence. There was a time when I used to pray for things to change. I'd ask for less debt, less fear, less pain, until one day I understood. I was praying incorrectly. I was focusing exactly on what I didn't want. The universe doesn't understand no. When you think I don't want any more debt, it hears debt. When you think I don't want any more loneliness, it hears loneliness. The secret is to shift your focus. Instead of fighting against what you don't want, start giving thanks for what you wish to see grow. The mind is a garden. Every thought is a seed, and what you water every day grows, whether it's a flower or a thorn. The right thinking is the intentional cultivation of what you desire. It's saying yes to the good, even when everything seems contrary. It's looking at chaos and asserting, this too will serve me. This mindset completely changes your relationship with reality. And there's something deeper. Thinking rightly isn't pretending everything is fine. It's choosing what to do with what isn't. It's deciding to be bigger than fear, even when it screams. It's acknowledging doubt, but continuing to move forward. It's like driving in the fog. You can't see the entire road, but you keep going, trusting that the path is there. The right thought is what sustains progress when nothing else seems to work. It's the bridge between the invisible and the visible. It creates the right emotion, and emotion drives the right action, and action aligned with purpose is what transforms destiny. So if there's something you desire today, more money, more peace, more love, observe how you think about it. Are you asking with fear or with faith? Are you imagining what you want or what you fear losing? Are you vibrating in lack or in gratitude? Because what you feel now is the exact preview of what's to come. The universe is mathematical and emotional at the same time. It returns to you the sum of your dominant vibrations. And the good news is that just one correct thought, sustained with faith, is enough to begin changing the entire equation. Right thinking is the beginning of everything. It's the point where the mind stops being the enemy and becomes the creator. It's the moment you stop trying to guess the future and finally start building it. The most important point you need to take from here is simple. Fear was never the problem. It was always just the symptom of a lack of understanding. The instant you exchange ignorance for understanding, fear dissolves and gives way to confidence, clarity, and action. And that is exactly what will open the doors to everything you wish to experience from this point forward. Continue right now, because the next video is already appearing on your screen, and in it, you will climb another step in your evolution of wisdom, becoming 1% better than you are now. Thank you very much for being here with me, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.